Jake Morrison stepped off the transport ship and felt his boots touch alien ground for the first time. The planet Cathera stretched before him in shades of purple and deep blue, nothing like the forests of Montana he had grown up in. The air smelled different here, sweeter somehow, and the gravity felt slightly lighter. He adjusted the pack on his shoulders and walked toward the main building of the Galactic Conservation Corps. He was 24 years old and the first human to ever join this organization. Earth had only been part of the galactic community for 5 years, and most aliens still saw humans as newcomers who knew nothing about the universe. Jake tried not to think about that too much. He was here to do a job, to prove that humans belonged among the stars. The main hall buzzed with activity. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some walked on 2 legs like him, others on 4 or 6. Some had scales, some had fur, and some had skin that seemed to shift colors as they moved. Jake had studied many alien species before coming here, but seeing them in person was completely different. "You must be the human," a voice came from behind him. Jake turned to see a woman in a Conservation Corps uniform. She had short blonde hair and sharp green eyes that looked him up and down. "I'm Lieutenant Kate Bennett. I'll be your supervisor." "Nice to meet you, ma'am," Jake said, shaking her hand. Kate's expression was serious. "Listen carefully, Morrison. You're not just representing yourself here. Every move you make, every word you speak reflects on all of Earth. The aliens are watching you. Most of them think humans are too soft, too young as a species to handle real work. Don't prove them right." Jake nodded. "I understand." "Good. Come with me. The hunting expedition leaders are gathering for a briefing." They walked through several corridors until they reached a large meeting room. Inside, dozens of alien hunters stood in groups, talking in various languages. Their equipment looked expensive and advanced, covered in technology Jake barely understood. He felt suddenly very aware of his simple gear, the basic tracking tools his grandfather had given him before he left Earth. A tall reptilian creature stood at the front of the room. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were cold and calculating. "Attention," he said, and the room fell silent. "I am Commander Vexthar. We begin the Great Hunt in 3 days. Our target is the Void Stalker, the most dangerous predator on this planet. Only the best hunters will track it." Murmurs of excitement filled the room. Jake listened carefully as Vexthar explained the rules and procedures. The Void Stalker had killed 5 experienced hunters in the past 10 years. It was fast, intelligent, and nearly impossible to find. The creature could hide in plain sight and strike without warning. A young alien near Jake laughed loudly. "This will be easy," he said in perfect English, clearly wanting Jake to hear. "I am Drokan of the Torvan Empire. My family has hunted for 10 generations. We have technology that can track anything." Another hunter, an older creature with 4 arms, shook his head. "The Void Stalker is not just anything, youngster. Show respect." Drokan waved a hand dismissively. Then he noticed Jake. "What is that doing here?" He pointed at Jake with one clawed finger. "A human? They barely left their own planet. They know nothing of real hunting." Several other aliens turned to look at Jake. Some whispered to each other. Jake felt his face grow warm, but kept his expression neutral. "The human is here as part of the inclusion program," Kate said firmly. "He has every right to be here." Drokan laughed again. "Inclusion? We should include children too, then. Humans live such short lives, barely 100 years. This one is practically an infant. What can he possibly know?" Jake clenched his fists but said nothing. His grandfather had taught him that words meant nothing in the wilderness. Only actions mattered. The briefing continued. Vexthar assigned positions for the hunt. The elite hunters would track the Void Stalker directly. Support teams would monitor from a distance. And Jake, along with a few other junior members, would remain at base camp to handle supplies and equipment. "Of course, the human gets camp duty," Drokan said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Probably the only thing he can handle without hurting himself." After the meeting ended, Kate pulled Jake aside. "Ignore them," she said quietly. "But understand this, you need to prove yourself fast. Earth's reputation depends on it. If you fail here, it could be decades before another human gets this opportunity." "I won't fail," Jake promised. That evening, Jake set up his quarters in a small room near the base camp. Through his window, he could see the alien forest stretching into the distance. The trees here grew in spirals, their leaves glowing faintly in the twilight. Strange calls echoed through the air, sounds he had never heard before. He pulled out a small photograph from his pack. It showed his grandfather, standing in the Montana wilderness with a rifle over his shoulder. The old man had taught Jake everything about tracking, about reading the land, about understanding the behavior of animals. "The forest talks to those who know how to listen," his grandfather used to say. Jake wondered if alien forests spoke the same language. 2 days later, a ship arrived that made everyone stop and stare. It was elegant and simple, unmarked by any empire or corporation. From it emerged a creature that walked with absolute confidence. She had blue-gray skin, 4 eyes that seemed to see everything at once, and moved with a grace that spoke of countless years of experience. "Zara Quinn," Kate whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The supreme hunter of the Kratesh. She's a legend. 300 years of hunting experience. She's tracked creatures on 100 worlds." Jake watched as every hunter in the camp, even the arrogant Drokan, bowed their heads in respect. Zara Quinn acknowledged no one. She simply walked to her quarters, her presence commanding absolute silence. The great hunt would begin tomorrow. Jake tried to sleep that night but found it difficult. He was far from home, surrounded by aliens who thought he was worthless, about to face a challenge that had killed experienced hunters. But somewhere deep inside, he felt a strange calm. His grandfather's lessons echoed in his mind. Listen to the land, move like the prey, wait like the predator. Tomorrow, he would show them what a human could do. The morning of the great hunt arrived with strange purple light filtering through the alien sky. Jake woke early and joined the other camp workers to prepare supplies. The elite hunters gathered at the edge of the forest, checking their weapons and scanning equipment. Their gear hummed with power, displaying holographic maps and life sign detectors. Drokan wore armor that looked like it cost more than everything Jake owned. The young Torvan checked his weapons with exaggerated confidence. "The Void Stalker will be mine by sunset," he announced to anyone listening. "My scanners can detect heat signatures through solid rock." Commander Vexthar raised one clawed hand. "Hunters, remember your training. The Void Stalker is not ordinary prey. It thinks, it plans, it learns. 5 experienced hunters have died pursuing it. Do not let pride cloud your judgment." The ceremony began with traditional words spoken in a dozen languages. Then, one by one, the hunters entered the forest and disappeared among the spiral trees. Zara Quinn went last, moving so quietly that Jake almost missed her departure. She glanced back once, her 4 eyes sweeping across the camp, and for a brief moment, her gaze rested on Jake. Then she was gone. Jake spent the first day organizing supplies and monitoring communications. The hunters spread out across the forest, their equipment sending constant data back to base camp. Heat signatures, movement patterns, soil analysis, air quality readings. Everything was measured and recorded, but there was no sign of the Void Stalker. By the second day, frustration crept into the hunters' voices over the communication channels. Their advanced technology found nothing. The forest seemed empty of any large predators. Some hunters argued that the creature had left the area. Others insisted it was hiding using some unknown method. Jake listened to everything while performing his assigned tasks. During breaks, he walked the perimeter of the camp, studying the forest edge. Something felt wrong, but he could not explain what. His grandfather had taught him to trust those feelings. On the third morning, the mood in camp turned sour. The elite hunters returned for resupply, their faces showing anger and confusion. Drokhan threw his scanner against a tree. "Useless technology! This forest interferes with everything." "Perhaps the creature is smarter than your machines," suggested an older hunter. "Impossible," Drokhan snapped. "Nothing can hide from Torvan technology." Kate found Jake checking supply inventories near the storage area. "Morrison, I need you to do a perimeter scout. Nothing official, just check the boundary markers and make sure they're still in place. Take your time." Jake understood. She was giving him a chance to actually explore. "Yes, ma'am." He grabbed his pack and headed into the forest. The spiral trees grew thick here, their glowing leaves creating patterns of light and shadow. Jake moved slowly, using the techniques his grandfather taught him. He did not look for the obvious signs. Instead, he looked for what was missing. The small creatures, the ones that should be everywhere, were absent in certain areas. The plants showed damage that was weeks old, carefully concealed. Broken branches had been repositioned to look natural. Most people would never notice, but Jake had spent years tracking deer and mountain lions in Montana. The signs were there if you knew how to read them. He followed the subtle trail for an hour, moving away from the designated hunting zones. The elite hunters were all searching in the wrong direction, focused on where their technology told them to look. But the Void Stalker was not there. It was here, in the area everyone had dismissed as too close to camp. Jake's heart beat faster. The creature had been watching them, learning their patterns, studying how they moved and where they searched. That is what a truly intelligent predator would do. He knelt beside a fallen log and examined the ground. The soil had been disturbed and then carefully smoothed over. Fresh disturbance, maybe a few hours old. Something large had passed this way. A twig snapped behind him. Jake froze. Every instinct screamed danger. He slowly reached for the small blade at his belt, knowing it would be useless against a creature that killed armored hunters. He turned his head slightly. Zara Quinn stood 10 feet away, perfectly still. Her 4 eyes watched him with intense focus. She had made no sound approaching. If not for that single twig, Jake would never have known she was there. "You see it too," she said quietly. It was not a question. Jake nodded slowly. "The hunters are looking in the wrong places. They follow their machines, but the Void Stalker is hunting them, not running from them." "Yes." Zara Quinn moved closer, her steps making no sound at all. "I have been watching you, human. You do not search like the others. You read the land itself." "My grandfather taught me," Jake said. "He said technology can lie, but the forest always tells the truth if you know how to listen." For the first time, something like approval crossed Zara Quinn's face. "Wise words. I have tracked prey for 3 centuries, and I learned this same lesson long ago. But the young hunters, they forget. They trust their tools more than their senses." Together they examined the area. Zara Quinn pointed out signs that even Jake had missed. The creature was massive, careful, and incredibly intelligent. It had been moving in a wide circle around the camp, staying just outside the hunters' search patterns. "Why do you hunt alone?" Jake asked. "You could lead the others." "I hunt alone because groups are loud and clumsy," Zara Quinn replied. "And I wanted to see what you would do, young human. Earth is new to the galactic community, but that does not mean you are without skill." A low rumble echoed through the forest. Both of them tensed. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere, a deep vibration that Jake felt in his chest. "It knows we found its trail," Zara Quinn said, her hand moving to her weapon. The Void Stalker does not like being discovered. The forest suddenly felt darker. The small sounds of insects and birds ceased entirely. Jake's instincts screamed again, louder this time. Every animal in the area had gone silent. That meant only one thing. The predator was here. Zara Quinn's 4 eyes scanned the shadows. "Stay close to me, human. What comes next will test everything you know about survival." Jake drew his blade and pressed his back against a tree. His hands were steady despite his racing heart. He had tracked dangerous animals before, but never anything like this. Never something that had killed trained alien hunters with advanced weapons. The forest held its breath. Somewhere in the shadows, the Void Stalker waited. And Jake knew that he and Zara Quinn were now the prey. The attack came from above. The Void Stalker dropped from the spiral trees like a nightmare given form. Jake saw a blur of black scales and gleaming teeth before Zara Quinn shoved him sideways. They rolled in opposite directions as the creature's claws struck the ground where they had been standing. Jake scrambled behind a thick tree trunk and got his first clear look at the beast. It stood 8 feet tall on powerful hind legs, with 4 arms ending in curved talons. Its scales absorbed light, making it nearly invisible in the shadows. The head was elongated with dozens of eyes arranged in clusters, able to see in every direction at once. "Do not look directly at all its eyes," Zara Quinn shouted. "It hypnotizes prey." The creature lunged at her with frightening speed. Zara Quinn fired her weapon, a blast of energy that would have killed most animals. The Void Stalker twisted mid-leap, the shot barely grazing its shoulder. It landed and immediately attacked again. Jake's mind raced. His small blade was worthless against those scales. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "When you cannot win by strength, win by thinking." "Use the land. Make it your weapon." He grabbed a handful of dirt and loose stones. "Hey!" he yelled, throwing them at the creature's clustered eyes. The Void Stalker flinched, turning its attention to him. That gave Zara Quinn time to reposition. The beast charged at Jake. He ran, not away but toward a cluster of spiral trees growing close together. At the last second, he dropped and slid between 2 trunks. The Void Stalker tried to follow, but its bulk caught between the trees. It roared in frustration. Zara Quinn fired again, this time hitting the creature's flank. It shrieked and backed away from the trees, reassessing. Jake and Zara Quinn stood side by side, breathing hard. "Smart move," Zara Quinn said. "You think like prey to survive like a hunter." "It's too fast for us to beat in open combat," Jake replied. "We need to use the environment." The Void Stalker circled them, more cautious now. Its many eyes watched their every movement. Jake noticed something important. The creature kept glancing over its shoulder, back toward a rocky outcrop about 50 yards away. "It's protecting something," Jake whispered. "That's why it attacked. We got too close to something it cares about." Zara Quinn's 4 eyes widened slightly. "A nest. It has young ones." The creature charged again, but this time its pattern was different. It was not trying to kill them. It was trying to drive them away. Jake saw it clearly now. Every attack pushed them back away from that rocky area. "We need to retreat," Jake said. "Show it we're not a threat to whatever it's protecting." "Retreat from prey?" Zara Quinn looked at him with surprise. "That is not the hunter's way." "It's not prey right now," Jake insisted. "It's a parent. There's a difference." The Void Stalker struck again. This time Jake did not dodge backward. He stepped sideways, angling away from the rocks. The creature's attack was less aggressive. When Jake moved further away, the beast did not pursue as hard. "Follow my lead," Jake told Zara Quinn. They moved slowly, deliberately away from the rocky outcrop. The Void Stalker followed but did not attack. As the distance grew, the creature's aggressive posture eased slightly. When they were 100 yards away, it stopped following entirely. It stood guard, watching them with all its eyes, but made no move to attack. "Extraordinary," Zara Quinn breathed. "You understood its behavior. You communicated without words." Jake's hands were shaking now that the danger had passed. "My grandfather taught me that animals are not evil. They do what they do to survive, to protect their families, same as us." They moved further away and found a safe spot to rest. Jake checked himself for injuries and found only bruises. Zara Quinn had a shallow cut on one arm, but seemed unconcerned. "Tell me more about your grandfather," Zara Quinn said, carefully cleaning her wound. "He taught you well?" Jake told her about growing up in Montana, about tracking animals through snow and learning to read the stories written in tracks and broken branches. He explained how his grandfather believed that good hunters respected their prey, understood them, and never killed unnecessarily. Zara Quinn listened with complete attention. When Jake finished, she was quiet for a long moment. 300 years ago, when I was young, the Kratesh hunted this way," she finally said. "We called it the old ways. We believed that a true hunter was part of the land, not separate from it. We took only what we needed. We honored what we killed. We understood that every creature has a purpose." "What happened?" Jake asked. "Technology happened. Progress. Other species taught us that efficiency mattered more than philosophy, that killing quickly was better than understanding deeply. Most of my people forgot the old ways. I am one of the few who remember." Zara Quinn looked at Jake with an expression he could not quite read. "And now I meet a human, barely an adult by my species' measure, who knows these truths without being taught by my people." "Different worlds. Same lessons," Jake said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jake spoke again. "We need to tell the others. The Voidstalker has young ones in that area. If Drokon or the others find them, they will try to kill the parent and maybe the babies too, for glory." "Yes," Zara Quinn agreed. "We must prevent this. But it will not be easy. The other hunters seek honor in the kill. They will not understand mercy." As if summoned by their words, voices echoed through the forest. Jake recognized Drokon's arrogant tone, shouting orders. The other hunters were moving this way, following the sounds of the fight. "We must hurry," Zara Quinn stood. "If Drokon reaches that nest, much blood will be spilled. The Voidstalker will kill to protect its young, and Drokon is too foolish to see the warning signs you and I saw." They ran through the forest, racing to intercept the other hunters. Jake's mind worked frantically. How could he explain what they discovered? How could he make the others understand? Behind them, the Voidstalker's roar echoed through the trees. It had detected the approaching hunters. The creature was preparing for war, and Jake knew that if they did not reach Drokon first, many would die today. The forest would run red with blood, both alien and beast. His grandfather's voice whispered one more lesson. Sometimes the hardest part of being a hunter is knowing when to put down your weapon. Jake and Zara Quinn burst through the tree line just as Drokon and 6 other hunters reached the rocky outcrop. The young Torvin held a large weapon that hummed with deadly energy. His scanner beeped rapidly in his hand. "There!" Drokon shouted triumphantly. "The readings show multiple heat signatures in those rocks. The Voidstalker and something else. Probably its lair." "Wait!" Jake yelled, running toward them. "Don't go closer, it's protecting its young." Drokon spun around, his face twisted with anger. "The human? What are you doing here? This is for real hunters only." "Listen to him," Zara Quinn commanded, her voice carrying absolute authority. The other hunters stopped, surprised to see the legendary Supreme Hunter. But Drokon's pride was too wounded. He had been searching for 3 days and found nothing. Now the human he had mocked and the legendary hunter appeared to claim his discovery. "No," Drokon said firmly. "I found it first. The glory is mine." "There is no glory in killing a mother protecting her babies," Jake tried to explain. "The Voidstalker is not hunting us. It is defending its nest. If we leave it alone, no one has to die." "Coward," Drokhan spat. "This is exactly what I expected from a soft human. Your species knows nothing of honor. We are hunters. This is what we do." One of the other hunters, an older female with red scales, stepped forward. "Perhaps we should listen. Zaraquin does not speak without reason." "Zaraquin is old and past her prime," Drokhan said, shocking everyone. "She has grown soft like the human. I will show you all how a true Torvin hunts." He raised his weapon and marched toward the rocks. Jake moved to stop him, but two of Drokhan's companions blocked his path. They were larger than Jake and armed. He could not get through. "Drokhan, stop!" Commander Vexthar's voice crackled over the communication devices. He had been monitoring the situation from base camp. "That is an order!" But Drokhan had already disabled his communicator. He fired his weapon into the rocks, the energy blast shattering stone and sending debris flying. The boom echoed through the forest. For one heartbeat, everything was silent. Then the Voidstalker exploded from the shadows with a scream that made Jake's blood run cold. But this was not the same creature they had fought before. This was a parent seeing its children threatened. This was fury beyond reason. The beast moved faster than Jake thought possible. It struck Drokhan like a hurricane, sending him flying through the air. His expensive armor cracked like an eggshell. The weapon fell from his hands. The other hunters opened fire. Energy blasts lit up the forest. Some hit the Voidstalker, but it did not slow down. It moved between them like death itself, claws slashing, tail whipping. Hunters screamed and fell. Jake saw the older red-scaled female get hit by the creature's tail. She crashed into a tree and did not get up. Another hunter tried to run and was dragged down. Blood splattered across the purple leaves. "Enough!" Zaraquin's voice cut through the chaos. She fired her weapon not at the Voidstalker, but into the air. The bright flash got everyone's attention. "All hunters fall back! Now!" Those who could still move retreated. The Voidstalker stood over the rocky outcrop, every muscle tensed, ready to kill anyone who came closer. Its many eyes blazed with protective rage. Jake made a decision. He dropped his blade and held his hands out to his sides, showing he had no weapons. Then he slowly, carefully began to walk toward the creature. "Morrison, what are you doing?" Kate's panicked voice came through his communicator. "Something crazy," Jake whispered back. He remembered his grandfather teaching him about bears in Montana, how to show them you were not a threat, how body language could speak louder than words. He kept his movements slow and non-aggressive. He did not look at the creature's eyes. He stopped 20 feet away and slowly sat down on the ground. The Voidstalker watched him, confused. This prey was not running, it was not attacking, it was simply sitting. Jake began to hum softly, a tune his grandfather used to calm horses. The sound was steady, peaceful. He kept his eyes down, his posture relaxed. He was telling the creature in the only way he could, "I am not your enemy." Minutes passed. The forest held its breath. The other hunters watched in stunned silence. Finally, the Voidstalker's aggressive posture eased slightly. It was still ready to fight, but the immediate rage had cooled. It looked at Jake, then at the retreating hunters, then back at Jake. Zaraquin understood what Jake was doing. She holstered her weapon and sat down as well, copying his posture. The other conscious hunters followed her example, slowly lowering their weapons and sitting. The Voidstalker made a low, rumbling sound. From the rocks behind it came tiny chirping noises, the babies, calling for their parent. The creature glanced back at them, then forward at the seated hunters. "We are leaving," Zaraquin said clearly, her voice calm. "We will not harm your young ones." The creature could not understand her words, but it understood the tone. Jake slowly stood up, still keeping his movements gentle. He backed away step by step. Zaraquin did the same. The other hunters followed. The Void Stalker watched them go. It did not pursue. When they were far enough away, it turned and disappeared into the rocks, returning to its babies. Back at the clearing, Jake found Drokan lying against a tree, his armor dented and cracked. 3 other hunters were injured, including the red-scaled female who had a broken arm. The medical team was already working on them. Drokan glared at Jake with pure hatred. "This is your fault, human. You made us look weak." "No," said the red-scaled female, wincing as medics treated her arm. "You made us look foolish. The human tried to warn you." "He interfered with a legal hunt," Drokan shouted, then coughed in pain. "I will report this. He will be expelled from the Conservation Corps. Humans will be banned." Commander Vexthar had arrived from base camp. His cold eyes surveyed the scene, the injured hunters, the damaged equipment, the failure of the hunt. "There will be an investigation," Vexthar announced. "Jake Morrison prevented a kill that would have brought glory to this expedition. Such interference violates our protocols. A tribunal will be convened." Jake's heart sank. Kate looked at him with worry. Zaraquin said nothing, her expression unreadable. "Earth's participation in the Conservation Corps is now under review," Vexthar continued. "Depending on the tribunal's decision, humanity may be barred from joining for the next 50 years. Jake had come here to prove that humans belonged among the stars. Instead, he might have doomed his entire species' chance at respect. But as he looked at the injured hunters being carried away, at the forest where a mother creature now guarded her babies safely, he knew he had made the right choice. Some things were more important than glory. The tribunal room was packed with representatives from 40 different species. Jake sat in a chair at the center, feeling very small. Behind him sat Kate and Director Ryan Cole, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Conservation Corps. Across from him sat Drokan, his armor repaired but his pride still wounded. The Tribunal Council consisted of 7 members from the oldest and most respected hunting cultures. Commander Vexthar presented the case against Jake, his voice cold and formal. "The human Jake Morrison interfered with a legal hunt," Vexthar stated. "He prevented Commander Drokan from claiming rightful prey. His actions resulted in failed glory for our expedition and injuries to multiple hunters. Such behavior violates the core principles of the Galactic Hunting Accords." Drokan stood to speak. His voice dripped with contempt. "The human showed cowardice and weakness. He treated a dangerous predator with mercy it did not deserve. He ignored centuries of hunting tradition. Earth is too young, too soft to understand what it means to be true hunters. I demand his expulsion and a ban on all human participation in the Conservation Corps for 50 years. Murmurs of agreement rippled through some sections of the audience. Jake felt Ryan Cole tense behind him. "Jake Morrison," the lead tribunal judge said. She was an ancient creature with silver skin and eyes like stars. "How do you answer these charges?" Jake stood. His legs were steady even though his heart pounded. "I do not deny stopping the hunt, but I ask the tribunal to consider why. The Void Stalker was not hunting us. It was protecting its young. Every parent in this room would do the same. I saw no glory in killing a mother defending her babies. I saw only unnecessary death." "Sentiment," Drokan sneered. "This is exactly why humans do not belong here. Hunting is not about feelings. It is about strength, skill, and honor." "Is it honorable to ignore warning signs?" Jake countered. "Is it skilled to walk blind into danger when all the signs tell you to stop?" "My grandfather taught me that a true hunter understands his prey. He knows when to hunt and when to walk away. That is not weakness. That is wisdom." "Your grandfather was a primitive human on a backward planet," Drokan shot back. What could he possibly know about galactic hunting traditions? Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but forced it down. Maybe Earth is young. Maybe we do not have fancy technology or centuries of space travel. But we know how to survive. We know how to read the land. And we know that respecting life does not make you weak. The tribunal judges conferred in low voices. Jake could not hear what they said. The silver-skinned judge looked ready to speak when a voice cut through the room. I request permission to address the tribunal. Every head turned. Zara Quinn stood at the back of the room. She had said nothing during the entire proceeding until now. The legendary Supreme Hunter walked forward, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Honored judges, Zara Quinn began, I have hunted for 300 years. I have tracked prey on 100 worlds. I have trained 60 accomplished hunters. I have witnessed the rise and fall of hunting dynasties. In all that time, I have rarely spoken at such gatherings because words matter less than deeds. She paused, her 4 eyes sweeping the room. But today, I must speak, because today I witnessed something I have not seen in over a century. I witnessed the old ways. Confused murmurs filled the room. Even the tribunal judges looked puzzled. The old ways, Zara Quinn continued, were the foundation of Kratesh hunting culture. Before technology, before scanners and energy weapons, before we conquered the stars, we hunted with respect. We understood that every creature has purpose. We knew that true mastery meant knowing when not to kill. She turned to look at Jake. This human knows the old ways, not because we taught him, not because he read about them in ancient texts, but because his grandfather, on a young planet far from here, taught him the same truths. Different world, different language, but the same wisdom. He interfered with a hunt, Drokan protested. He prevented a legitimate kill. He prevented a massacre, Zara Quinn corrected sharply. I was there, youngster. You charged blind into danger, ignored all warnings, and nearly got yourself and 6 others killed. Jake Morrison read the signs you missed. He understood the Void Stalker's behavior. He communicated with a deadly predator using nothing but body language and patience. He prevented death while you were seeking glory. The room was completely silent now. Zara Quinn turned back to the tribunal. The old ways teach us that a master hunter must possess 3 qualities: understanding, courage, and wisdom. Understanding to read the land and the prey. Courage to face danger without arrogance. Wisdom to know when the hunt should end. She paused. Jake Morrison demonstrated all 3. Drokan demonstrated none. Drokan's face turned dark with rage. You dare insult me? I speak truth, Zara Quinn replied calmly. You are young and skilled with weapons, but you lack the soul of a true hunter. Perhaps one day you will learn. But today, you are not fit to judge this human. The lead judge leaned forward. Supreme Hunter Zara Quinn, what do you propose? Zara Quinn walked to stand beside Jake. I invoke the kinship right, an ancient tradition of my people. When a hunter recognizes another who walks the true path, they may declare them brother or sister in spirit. This bond transcends species, age, and origin. Gasps filled the room. Even Commander Vexthar looked shocked. The kinship right had not been invoked in over a century. Before these witnesses and this tribunal, Zara Quinn said formally, placing one hand on Jake's shoulder, I name Jake Morrison of Earth as Brother Hunter. He walks the old ways. He honors the balance between hunter and prey. He understands what many have forgotten. I bind my reputation to his character. The tribunal judges immediately began conferring. The kinship right carried immense weight in galactic law. By invoking it, Zara Quinn had essentially made Jake her equal. To punish him now would be to insult the Supreme Hunter herself. The lead judge spoke. The kinship right is recognized by this tribunal. Jake Morrison is cleared of all charges. Furthermore, Drokon of the Torvan Empire is formally reprimanded for reckless endangerment and poor judgment. He will not be permitted to participate in major hunts for 2 years. Drokon looked like he wanted to explode, but said nothing. To argue now would only make things worse. The judge continued, Earth's participation in the Conservation Corps is approved. Jake Morrison is promoted to full tracker status and assigned to train under Supreme Hunter Zara Quinn. Ryan Cole let out a breath behind Jake. Kate grinned despite her professional demeanor. The tribunal was dismissed. As aliens filed out, many stopped to look at Jake with new respect. Some even nodded in acknowledgement. The human was no longer an outsider. He was brother to the Supreme Hunter. Later that evening, Jake stood at the edge of the alien forest with Zaraquin. The spiral trees glowed softly in the twilight. "Why did you do it?" Jake asked quietly. "You could have let them expel me?" "Because you reminded me of who I used to be," Zaraquin replied. "Before I forgot the joy of simply understanding the wilderness. You gave me back something I thought was lost." She looked at him with all 4 eyes. "Your people are young in the stars, Jake Morrison, but you carry old wisdom. That is rare and precious. My grandfather would have liked you," Jake said with a smile, "and I would have liked to meet him. He trained you well." In the distance, a sound echoed through the forest, the call of the Void Stalker, peaceful now, singing to its young. Jake and Zaraquin listened in comfortable silence. 2 hunters from different worlds, different species, different ages. But in the wilderness under alien stars, they understood the same truth. Being a hunter was not about the kill, it was about respect, understanding, and knowing your place in the greater balance of life. Jake pulled out his grandfather's photograph and looked at it in the fading light. "I did it, Grandpa," he whispered. "I made you proud." Somewhere in the Montana wilderness, in a memory carried across the stars, an old man smiled. And in the alien forest, a new legend began. The legend of the human who taught the galaxy how to remember what it meant to truly hunt.